Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. The show is also known as PWD Allies Podcast. Check it out on Spotify or your app store or wherever you find it best suited for you. So today I have MP Mike Morrice from Kitchener, Ontario joining me. And Mike and I and Neil, we're all going to be talking about the Canada Disability Benefit, which did a complete flip-flop, and well, $200. Wow, wait until July, maybe in July of 2025, and it's only going to go to a select amount of people. Not every PWD, 1.5 million disabled Canadians are not going to get it. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Mike. Thanks for joining me.
Well, just before Mike starts, I just wanted to say, like, we weren't even planning to do this podcast. This is what we would call a very special edition podcast, because we weren't planning to do it. Monday was going to be our last podcast for a while before you went on your train trip. And then the announcement with the CDB hit, and it was like, we have to do something. And
yes.
And like we were saying off camera, is that, it could have been just you and I, Brent, complaining about what happened, on the 17th or 16th, I guess it was. But I thought, to do it justice, we have to reach out to Mike Morrice here. And so I'm really glad that you're available last minute, Mike, to do this.
Well, right away, though, I wanted to quickly mention something. When that budget came out, Mike, the first thought in my mind, is this a delayed April Fool's joke? That's the first thing I thought in my mind. Is this a delayed April Fool's joke? I thought, no, I'm not hearing this right. Yeah, that was my thought.
Yeah, truthfully, when I read it for the first time, Brent, I misread it and thought it was per month. 2,400 is what it says in the budget per year.
That's
and
what I
it
thought.
took me a moment to realize that it was, in fact, 200 a month. And it's just so deeply disappointing. It's an honor that you both asked me to be a part of the show today, at a time when we are looking to kind of continue to put the pressure on. This is what's been proposed. It's not set in stone. It's so important that we make sure that the voices of the disability community, that folks with disabilities are being heard right now, and that's been my interest. And so happy to be back with you again to answer any questions you might have, but also continue to put pressure on the government to act.
Yeah, we should.
I actually have one quick question for you, Mike. Now, looks like the federal government's going to put that DTC in there as a stumbling block as a pre-qualifier in order to get that big $200.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what is proposed in the budget. What I have shared in past, so we first started to hear rumors about this back in December, and that's when I first brought this up in question period, the possibility we'd started to hear that officials might be looking to use the disability tax credit. I then followed up on it back in February to call out that we were actually successful, my team and I, in securing an amendment that came from the disability community that calls for the Canada Disability Benefit to be barrier-free in the application process. And so I shared it then. I was back on the floor again last night my read is that's in contravention of the Act. I do not understand how this government is going to make the case that the disability tax credit isn't barrier free. To their credit, they have allocated some money in the budget that I'm sure you've noted in terms of to help folks to apply for the disability tax credit. I was able to follow up with officials to understand that they're actually expecting the number of people who access the DTC to increase as a result of this. However, I don't see any argument where one could say that the DTC is without barriers. In fact, the case I've been making on the floor of the House is it's actually the exact opposite. It is one of the most burdensome federal programs that are currently available. And so to limit those who can access the Canada Disability Benefit to those who have access to the disability tax credit is not only disappointing, but in my read, it doesn't meet the stipulations of an amendment we secured to Bill C-22, which is now the Canada Disability Benefit Act. And so it's not only that it's limited to $200 per person per month, and that it's limited to those who have the DTC. Of course, also, it's not meant, according to what's proposed in the budget, at least to even begin until next July of 2025. I don't, for all the talk about consultation, I haven't heard from a single person with a disability who said that any of those three things are what they wanted. And so that's what I tried to raise last night, is if you're saying, in fact, one of the quotes I read out from Twitter from last night, Elandria is the person who said, they sure put nothing in nothing without us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is what one of our panelists on our previous show the other day, Minnie St. Clair, said, is that the whole nothing about us without us is without us. And that's what her comment was. And it's so true, right? I mean, it's just like it's just virtual signaling, or, you know, and it's just very insulting, the whole thing. You know, I have this, I think about this metaphor, you know, how sometimes you have, like, when you're putting a wedding together, you have, there's always that troublesome uncle or aunt that you're like, where do I put this uncle and aunt that are just kind of annoying or troublesome, and you put them on a separate table, you know, and that kind of feels what the disability community is, that we're this nuisance group that has to be put off to a separate table, and we don't have a proper seat at the table. We're by the kitchen, by the noisy kitchen somewhere, you know, out of sight, you know, and it's just very, very insulting. One of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of go down memory lane a little bit, like back up the train and do, you know, we have to realize that the Canada Disability Benefit was first announced back in 2021, right? And,
well, before then even, right, Neil?
Well,
to be fair, it was kind of re-announced in the platform in 2021, but to Brent's point, it was 2020 in the speech from the throne, right? And really had been called for from the disability community even prior to that. They finally got the notice in 2020. And I think I only raised that as a reminder to make clear that this is, you know, everything that has been accomplished has been because of the advocacy of the disability community. And what is proposed in the budget is not the final. It's what we're going to need to continue to advocate. In fact, I was just on my feet this morning, and sorry I interrupted, Neil, so I'll throw it back to you. But even just this morning, to a question from the NDP when they were speaking about the budget, where I tried to put to them on the floor of the House, you know, there is not a coalition government, but there is a supply and confidence agreement. And that means that they do need another party to pass this budget. And so there is an opportunity to push for more amongst those who are going to support the budget. And so there is pressure that can be placed on all parliamentarians to push for more in what's been proposed, whether it's in this budget or in the next economic statement. This can't be seen as kind of the the final proposal from the government, because it's just so far from where they set the expectation.
Yeah.
And oh, absolutely. The disability community right now, I mean, as you see on Twitter or X or whatever people want to call it now, it's just blowing up. As soon as that budget came out, I mean, people feel betrayed. They feel that they don't have that, the right to live with dignity and respect. And it's just like so many people are just reaching out saying like, well, what's the point in living now? And we have to ensure them that we're going to keep advocating and keep pushing forward. I mean, all of us to keep pushing up that hill and push the policy makers to do the right thing and amend this and do the right thing and get people above the poverty line. I mean, nobody in Canada living in poverty.
And to that end, Brent, actually, it was about 3 weeks ago or so, Mike, where you stood up and you took a lot of slings and arrows and bullets when you said that that people with disabilities don't have the right to live, but this government has given them the right to die. And everybody was like, boo, hiss, you had all the scoffers. You had all the scoffers going after you. But I mean, this today, proves this is the explanation mark. This proves how little people with disabilities are respected, right?
Yeah, I was really just trying to make the point that it's clear that government can move quickly when it chooses to, whether it's because the courts require it or in the pandemic when it comes to CERB and the disability community, of course. You both have been such strong advocates when it comes to DERB and the Disability Emergency Response Benefit. I think it is a powerful call from the disability community to note how governments can move quickly and to call out that they should be moving quickly and adequately when it comes to funding the Canada Disability Benefit. It's the point I've been making in question periods since I was elected. Obviously, as you mentioned, Neil, a few weeks ago when I made the same point, it was met with, I wasn't expecting that response from Liberal colleagues at the time. But I think this budget kind of proves out that we're not seeing the urgency or the adequacy that meets even the expectation that their party set in a platform under the terms of if they get reelected, which they did. And so I think it's totally reasonable and appropriate for parliamentarians to call them on that, to amplify what we're hearing from the disability community.
Yeah, well, especially with the provinces, actually, they didn't give a rate increases to people with disabilities in their province and territories because they were waiting on the federal government to come out with it. Now it's kind of like almost like egg in the face, shall we say, going, oh, and then they hear like $200, but they have to wait till then. So now it's going to go in. I'm sure a lot of them are going, like, oh boy, what do we do now?
Well, this brings up another point, Brent, and I didn't know if, because I think probably Mike doesn't know this, and a lot of our listeners don't know this, is that 6 weeks ago, you kept this under wraps, but 6 weeks ago, you had special information. You were given special privileged information from an insider inside the provincial government here in BC, that the Canada Disability was happening, and this person gave the impression that it was going to be happening this July.
Yeah.
It gave the distinct impression that it was going to be happening this July, and that also the impression was that it was going to be poverty level support. So like here in BC, right now our assistance rates are $1,500 a month for single, right? So I thought to bring it up to the LICO amount is about $2,100 a month, right? So I thought if that being the case, then that means that the CDB would have had to be targeted at $600 minimum to hit the LICO amount, right? And so this was 6 weeks ago, and you and I and Sonia too, we've all been sitting on that information. We didn't tell anybody because we were wondering, like, like there was even like opposition members didn't have a clue. Like you got information, inside information that nobody, like even the opposition people didn't even know.
Yeah, I was told pertinent information that I could advocate it out, but I couldn't say where I heard it from.
Who the source was.
Yeah, what the source was. And it was just eating away at me because I was told that, don't worry, there is going to be something in this budget, okay? And it's definitely going to help people with disabilities. And I said, well, people are suffering right now, sir. Right now, people are suffering. And to the person. And they're like, we get it. And that's why the federal government's going to be delivering on this. Rest assured, it's good news. The same individual then told me, I fast forward past 6 weeks, to current, was that had got off the phone with the minister in charge of disability for Fed and wouldn't give out that information and saying, well, how much is going to be in the budget? I don't know.
Yeah.
So we now know that that minister actually did know how much was going to be in the budget, as we know when the budget came out on April 16th, 2024. But obviously there's a hell of a lot more that we need to do advocating to push them in the right direction. And like you mentioned, Mike, the opposition that's holding with the coalition, that's holding the Liberals to account, we need them now to hold the Liberals to account and get a equivalent of a DERB out there. Either we use the word DERB, immediate support, to help people between now and by the time that they work on all the red tape rigmarole.
But my thing is, I just wonder if like some sort of bait and switch thing happened. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I'm just hypothesizing because like we had Sheila Malcolmson on your podcast too, and Jeff Leggett and yourself have met privately with Sheila Malcolmson quite a few times, and she's put out there, like it's not private information. She's put out there publicly many times that the LICO amount is $2,100. The MBM, the market basket measure, is $2,200, and that in her private discussions with the federal government about the CDB, she told you and Jeff both that the federal government was targeting the LICO amount. That's what she said. So if the federal government was targeting the LICO amount of $2,200, kind of what happened? What happened if indeed the LICO amount was targeted of $2,100? What happened? So I kind of wonder, and this has kind of been my secret fear from the beginning, to be honest with you, Mike, is like I was always at the very beginning, like back in 2020 or 2021, like I like the idea of the CDB. Like I saw the potential of it, but like I wasn't like the rah. Like everybody accused me and Brent of being the rah type. Like let's go, like and I was pessimistic, right? I was.
Yeah, we had that feeling that I had that feeling that they were going to screw it up somehow, and guess what?
Yeah, and so again, this goes back to my point. Like if Sheila Malcolmson was saying that in her consultations with the federal government, they were targeting the LICO amount, you kind of wonder, did some of the provinces in the backroom deals get their back up and say, don't make us look bad, and then maybe the prime minister said, well, watch me, kind of thing. I don't know,
yeah,
but it just
give up that much money. We want to give up.
It makes me wonder.
Yeah.
I would just offer, we also heard, you might know, I've been pushing for a windfall profit tax on the oil and gas industry, and it's coming out now that there was lobbying from the industry in the weeks leading up to the budget. That would have been an extra $4.2 billion that could have gone towards, for example, an increase to the Canada Disability Benefit. We will hear all kinds of stories about whatever happened behind the scenes leading up to this budget. My offering would be to consider that ultimately it's people power that got us this far, and it's going to be people power that's going to move us further in a better direction. And to the extent that folks have the energy and interest, I would encourage putting that towards applying political pressure on your MP collectively through organizations that are bringing folks together, as well as through the grassroots, because it's clear to me that they haven't felt sufficient pressure. We would have seen a better number on Tuesday of this week, but the fact that it's there at all is also only because of all of the pressure that's been building up to this point. And even, some of the organizations that have moved in solidarity, I'm thinking about the Daily Bread Food Bank, for example. You look at the 3 recommendations, the top 3, and I have colleagues in the House of Commons who will say to me, you look at the lineups in the food banks, we've got to axe the tax. Well, what I've said to them is, well, let's read what the food banks are actually telling the federal government they want. And in fact, all 3 of the top recommendations from the Daily Bread Food Bank are all related to the Canada Disability Benefit. And so all that is because of the disability community and folks with disabilities who've been raising this alarm for years and years. And it's obvious that more of that pressure is going to be required to move the current government and MPs on all sides, because it is a minority parliament, to push for better. I can tell you right now, you didn't ask, but I'll be clear with you, I can't support the budget as it stands right now. I can't vote for this budget. I would need to see more, for example, when it comes to the Canada Disability Benefit, as well as other measures like a windfall profit tax. And so we're going to need more pressure, not necessarily to say, okay, vote against the budget, but rather to say, we expect more in order to earn that support from the governing party. They could bring forward an amendment, for example, to do it. And so we can spend our time wondering what happened the last few weeks, or we could focus it on the advocacy that's going to be required, the mobilizing that you both are doing through podcasts like this one, what I see online, what we know is happening in person, the meetings and the phone calls. And I know it can be exhausting, but we also know that it's that mobilization and that organizing that turns that our anger into constructive advocacy that is the reason why we have gotten this far, why you've gotten this far.
It's always, I always say, it's like kicking down another door and another door opens and you just keep on going like a domino effect.
Yeah, it just makes me scratch my head, because let's throw out the buzzwords at the beginning when the CDB was first announced. It was, the Carlo Quattro would say words like, it's going to be transformative, it's going to be groundbreaking, it's going to lift disabled people out of poverty, it's going to be historic, and all these things. And she said, like, I'm hell bent. She would say things like, I'm hell bent on getting this thing out there, and I'm sorry, but $200 a month is not groundbreaking. It's not transformative.
That's like $6 a day, and average prices now, as we know, inflation and the interest rates, everything combined. By the time it gets down to the consumer, that cost is now skyrocketed right up. As we all know, tax the multi-billion-dollar corporations, like you mentioned. To me, if I had to vote on that, if I was in Parliament or whatever, and I had to vote on that, I'd beg right away. I'd say, tax the, get this done. Like, they got to tax the ultra rich in order to pay for this services. If they want to do business in Canada, they got to pay their fair share of taxes. End of story on that one. I know. I'll get your view on that, but
well, we've reached the top of the hour also, Brent. So I want to be respectful of Mike's time as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, maybe I can just close by saying thanks to you both. And to folks who are listening for all that you've done to bring us to this point. I really appreciate being back with you to continue the conversation. And obviously, we're going to have to continue the advocacy. And we do that best when we're mobilizing folks right across the country. And I know you both have been doing that. And so have groups like Inclusion Canada and March of Dimes and Disability Without Poverty and others. And so I really appreciate You for bringing me back on again for this conversation, for all your advocacy, because ultimately it really is about trying to hear the voices of folks with disabilities and amplify those as best we can. And I feel like I've benefited so much as an MP from conversations with you both. And so thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Mike. It's a great pleasure having you come back on and touching base with us and continuing your advocacy too, and pushing the federal government on doing the right thing, and any MP that is involved in that decision making, because it affects people's lives. I mean, people, from what I hear, even in my community, Mike, they just want to live with respect and dignity and have enough money where they can thrive within their community and give back to their community. And when they feel that a government had made a promise and then they fall through on it, I had a lady this morning I was talking to, she was crying because she says she feels that the federal government gave up on her and that she's not worth as a citizen. And I said, no, I will keep fighting for you. I will get other advocates and other organizations to keep fighting, MPs to keep fighting. We're all in this together to keep fighting going forward. And so I want to thank you, Mike, and I just want to pass that information on to you. And if you can maybe pass that on into the House of Commons, that's the story that I shared with you today. That I guess the moral of it is people feel that they were let down, by the federal government, that government doesn't care.
But I'm so glad, Brent, you're able to share with her that while she may have been let down by this government, there are folks who are listening, and it starts with yourself, and then builds towards parliamentarians like myself, that we need to ground our advocacy in that experience, and folks need to know that there are listening ears, even when we're not seeing a political party or government moving as quickly as we'd like. That we're there to support one another in those difficult moments, and to share those stories. And so I appreciate you sharing it with me.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And I get I got a train trip starting tomorrow. From
Enjoy
Vancouver to
Enjoy
Toronto.
It,
so yeah, it's going to be great. But until our next conversation, thank you very much, and I hope to have you back on very soon when I
Looking forward
return.
to it.
Thanks, Mike.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Take care, you both.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you everyone for tuning in today. It was MP Mike Morrice from Kitchener, Ontario, talking about the Canada Disability Benefit. Always great to have Mike join, and we'll see you again soon, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.